So my first job was as a psychology lecturer, and it was around the time the birth of the internet, I suppose. I got very excited. I suppose I was a bit geeky, very interested in technology, and started creating web pages and taught myself to use Flash and created a site called Psychology Resources. And just as a bit of a hobby, really, started seeing what we could do with technology and then talking to the college about how technology might influence our future. So that was when I first got interested in learning technology.
I think probably my first encounter was when I very first joined Bupa, and they just implemented Bupa's very first learning management system, and it was in its pilot phase, and it had only been live for about 2 or 3 months. And part of that particular project really was to increase the opportunity that Bupa was providing for self-development, and also to launch its very first piece of e-learning, which was around a new product launch. I was mainly kind of administering, so making sure that the data feed that we had between the learning management system and our HR data was up to date, that people could access the training, testing it to make sure that it was working, and also trying to encourage usage, so to running lots of overviews and telling people about the system so we could try and get them actively using it.
My first encounter with learning technologies was when I was teaching English in Turkey. A long time ago, it was a green screen Amstrad PwC 512, which your older viewers will remember. It was all floppy disks, it was fantastically antiquated, but it meant that I could create my lesson plans, reproduce them week after week, and give people multiple choice questions without having to do things over and over again. It was a godsend. Of course, we say learning technologies, but really, that was all about me. It wasn't about the students. It made my life so much easier. The students got the same materials as the class doing the same course the previous month had, and they didn't really, I think, see too much benefit. So I'm hoping that learning technologies have moved on a bit from then.
I'd been a user of e-learning, typically off-the-shelf, old-fashioned CBT, which was very dull, very American and very linear, so not the best experience. I think technology has changed what's possible, and it can be much more interactive now. My view of off-the-shelf e-learning hasn't necessarily changed. I still think that mass-produced content isn't the greatest experience and not the most effective way to learn. I think it has to be relevant to the organisation and to the individual.
I think if I think about learning technologies in its broadest sense, probably when I was at school, I can remember sitting at a computer doing some kind of competency test. And I can remember it told me I was good with numbers, I was good at logic, and I should stay clear of words and arts. If I take it back to work, though, I rejoined PwC probably about 10 years ago, and I had to do some computer-based training when I joined. Some of it was turgid, it was tedious, it was an exercise in clicking. Some of it, though, particularly when there was a person in it, was memorable, and I can still remember stuff that I did 10 years ago with little clips or humour or something, so it was a mixed bag.
I first encountered learning technologies when I was at university. I was on a 1-year placement with a technology company, and they were implementing a learning management system that their US parent company developed, and they had things like virtual courses, virtual tours, a little e-learning on health and safety, and that was my first encounter of learning technologies. I loved it then, I still love it now. I've always been a bit of a fan, and I think it's progressed quite a bit now, and the potential of that is absolutely brilliant.
And my first encounter with learning technologies was when I was a fresh graduate with my first job, and I was brought into a learning and development department, or a training department at the time, up in the city, and I was responsible for running their learning centre, which was really very much a cupboard under the stairs full of videos and mainframe computer-based training. But they had, at the time, a very new thing, which was an interactive video disc. And it was absolutely massive. And it was a program for teaching leadership skills. And it allowed you to do 360-degree comparisons of leadership training and really incredible interactive components to it. And I have to admit, as a psychology graduate with an interest in adult learning, I was completely hooked on on. This I felt had to be the future, and really I caught the bug, and it stayed with me ever since.
I think I first encountered learning technologies in a conscious way probably back in the early 90s. It's when I was working with a technology which is now defunct, which was Philips CDI. Essentially it was an interactive video technology. I was involved in essentially a package of, I guess it's blended learning. So there was a book, there were workbooks, and then there was this interactive CD for which we shot video and then created interactive exercises. And because I'd been working on the book, I was involved as a sort of researcher stroke subject matter expert, and helped to design the actual interactive exercises as well. So that was a first for me, and that was my introduction, I guess, on a professional basis to learning technologies.
I mean, this would be probably in the late 80s, and I worked in an insurance company then. Learning was something quite alien in the insurance company. It was all sort of very product related or skill related, and we implemented a laser disc in the office, which was quite an exciting development in terms of a machine in the office, but also laser discs were very new then, and quite innovative for its time. But just no connection to the day job, or sort of my boss didn't talk about it or make any connections to personal development. It was just there in the corner, really, you know. So I used it for a while because most people who wanted to get somewhere were using the laser discs. But then, you know, lost interest and went into more traditional methods of learning, really. Probably more to do with the organisation and the way they directed learning then, as opposed to my own appetite, you know.